Many people say that music is a universal language. If that's the case, I would like to use music as a platform to talk about health. My name is Dr. Moshe Lewis, and I'm a full-time practicing physician who loves music and the way it affects our brains, our bodies, and our well-being. I would like to invite you to tune in where we interview musical artists about health matters that are important to them. But the truth is, we'll be discussing topics that affect all of us. From mental health to body image, cancer screening to stroke, our health is truly our greatest asset. So the goal is to open the dialogue on health to embrace topics that we don't always like to talk about in a way that's raw, candid, and lit. Hopefully these discussions will improve the health of our community. After all, your health matters to me, and if I can make it sound more beautiful, then that's something we should all listen to.
Music and medicine, when you hear those words, how do they speak to your heart?
Music and medicine, music is medicine. You feel me?
Welcome to Music and Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Moshe Lewis. Really excited and delighted today to be joined by a legend, Ms. Claudette Robinson. Her reputation precedes itself. Founding member of the Miracles, she is a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. She's inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame back in 2012. Singer, actress, author, inspirational. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Chaperone being our very first major hit and became number one and the first million seller for Motown. So, of course, that brings such great fondness because had that never happened, we probably would not have happened. And, as we started as the very first act, I was the first female, the first group, and so many first, until when you're hearing that, it's like, we're talking about over 60 years later, even though I'm not quite 60
Not
years
yet.
old. Yeah.
Right. 60.
When you're hearing that, it's like, my goodness, how did that happen? It's, I feel always very honored, very blessed, because singing was not my first career. I wanted to be a teacher.
Right.
And because at the time, people of color really weren't making that much money in show business, so I didn't think that would be a good career to follow.
Yeah.
However, teaching now probably is somewhat of the reverse.
Right. Sure. I wanted to tease that out a little bit because you definitely also went far down that road. Talk to us about some of the things you were doing, sort of preparing to go into a career that had essentially nothing to do with music.
Well, I still work with young children.
Mm-hmm.
I have a children's book out now. It's called Claudette's Miraculous Motown Adventure. And I was just in Detroit at the Motown Museum, and they brought in a group of young children. I read the book to them. And then after that, they asked questions. We took pictures and all of that. But I actually volunteered in classrooms for probably around 30 years. I would find a way if my children were in a class. Can I help? Is it okay? And I did that for my son and my daughter and for my oldest granddaughter. For her, I started in preschool and kept right on with her on volunteering in classrooms until she was in the 12th grade. And when she started USC, I thought maybe I could still go, but it's like, Granny, no, please.
Not my cause.
But I've always had a great, great love for children. I still do. And I think that's what it is. I love being around young people. They give me great ideas about life. A lot of times as people get older, they're like, I don't know, these children don't know anything, but they know quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we can learn things from them. And I try to do that, to try to learn something each day from the young as well as the old, I shouldn't say old.
Older.
So it's, for me, it's been wonderful to do that. I've worked with organizations that deal with children and trying to help out in ways and areas that would be important, to me at least. And I find it very rewarding. It's fulfilling. And that's what I like to do. So I've kind of gotten a little bit of my teaching through my volunteer work.
Sure. Let's tease out some of the music because it almost seems like your brother leaving kind of really encouraged you to take part, although I think you were with a female group and he was with the Matadors, I guess you all called at the time. And that also you all were there before Motown was even a thing.
Well, that is correct. We were definitely there before Motown began. When we went for that audition that my brother actually couldn't make because he had been shipped off to Germany, to the Army. At that audition, they did not like us at all. And the reason for not liking us, believe it or not, was the fact that there was a girl in the group. They wanted me to be like the lead singer. The group already had a lead singer.
Sure.
So I couldn't take over their group. And also, I didn't want to be the lead singer. I love harmony. I love the blend of what happens of people getting together, because people think that it's easy to sing in the background. It is not, because you've got to blend with others. You can't just sing whatever you want to. And we were fortunate at that time, at that audition, to meet Mr. Gordy. However, I must tell you, I had no idea who Mr. Gordy was.
Right.
He was a songwriter. He had written multiple hits for Jackie Wilson.
Right.
And with those hits, the person that did know who he was actually Smokey. Smokey thought that he's like, Berry Gordy? And I'm looking like, well, who is that?
Right.
You know? And how he knew about him was the fact that when you would have songs from a long time ago, there was a magazine called Hit Parade, and Hit Parade listed the lyrics as well as the name of the songwriter. So we almost, had it not been for Mr. Gordy, we probably would not have been signed on to anybody, because there was already a group out that had a girl in the background, and that was the Platters.
Yes.
And so I guess they felt like, this is going to be a copy or something, but we were trying to explain to them our group was going to be very different. And the difference is that I was going to do the same routines that the guys did. I wasn't going to wear flowing gowns. I'd wear the same little outfits that the guys wore, with the exception of I would have a skirt on and not pants. But I'd have the same little jacket. So it was really, when I look back on it, I was like, I should have been wearing those flowing gowns, been flowing around. But that was really our beginning. There was no Motown at that time. There was no Hitsville. There was none of that. There was just Mr. Gordy being our manager, because he said, I'd like to work with you guys. He said, because I like the girl in there. And I thought, okay. And I wasn't sure, because at that time I was actually in the United States Marine Corps in the reserves. And I had done my basic training at Camp Pendleton in San Diego, California. I'd become a sharpshooter, and I was destined to, this is going to be my career.
Right. Yes, sir.
So that's a little part of what happened during that time.
Sure. Tell us a little bit about, though, that interaction with Mr. Gordy and really sort of getting to know what he was really like, because my understanding is, as creative as he was with the pen, he was also very demanding.
Well, I don't know if you would say demanding, but what he wanted is to get the very best that he could get of the artist. He wanted you to be able to go out there and represent well. And so it was first us, because when we went out, our very first time out, now you got to remember, there was no artist development, no any of that. What it was is that raw talent. We could sing, but there were lots of other things to learn. And our first time out was at the Apollo Theater. And at the Apollo Theater, we were, of course, the opening act. And there are 5 people on stage and a guitarist. And they're saying, now, ladies and gentlemen, the miracles. And we all 3 stage left, 2 stage right. And we're there on the stage. And so we had our own routine, we thought. And we get to the middle of the stage, and we started clapping for 12 bars. You don't have time to do that at the Apollo. The reason being, there are 5 other acts on the show. And you also not only have that one show, you're starting at like 10 o'clock in the morning. You have 4 or 5 shows each day for a week. So it's like, but when you're young, it's a lot different than being maybe 2 years older. And so the first time out, the owner of the Apollo Theater called Mr. Gordy and said, I think I want to get my money back because these guys are taking way too long. I've got these other acts, and it was, I don't know, somehow I think the Apollo audience, which is a tough audience, I think they took pity on us and said, there's that little girl there. We've got these guys. Let's give them a chance. And that's what they did. And the result is what happened over the years.
Sure. Did you all have any sense, you mentioned Shop Around being such a big hit, any idea as you all were traveling around that it would catch like that?
Well, if you're speaking to me, no, I did not.
Right.
I was not the greatest in finding what they say, the hits. Some of the songs that I did not think were going to become hits did, and vice versa. I didn't know. I thought Shop Around might be, possibly would be. But when it actually became a hit, you can't believe how excited we were because that was a real surprise to us. We were at the Michigan State Fair. We were performing, and Mr. Gordy and Mrs. Edwards and the owner of the State Fair and also others came on stage with this huge plaque. And it was like 1 million sales, the miracles. And we almost like fell out because we couldn't believe it because our other songs that we had done with other record companies did not make it. And so we weren't sure, it was a trial and error.
Sure. What are those secret ingredients that you think make songs a hit and last throughout the generations now looking back?
Well, I'm not actually sure what makes a hit because I think people do that. Mm-hmm. Once a record is played enough times, it kind of catches on. For the most part, not always, because unfortunately our song after Shop Around, which was called Ain't It Baby, was probably the worst disaster we ever had, ever. So it's like at the time, the way the writing was is that they didn't think that it should be the same as like Shop Around. So if you've ever heard Ain't It Baby, which I'm sure you probably have not, it did not resemble Shop Around at all. Mm-hmm. And I think the audience wanted something closer to Shop Around. And as a result of that, that song went, somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And, but I think it's a lot that goes into a song that really makes it what it is. It's, of course, the songwriting, but it's also the music, and it's like the conglomeration of all of them coming together and making it what perhaps your audience may love.
Sure. You mentioned Mr. Robinson. Is there something that you noticed in his songwriting ability or in his lyric making or his voice that seemed so unique that it was destined to continue to make the group so successful?
You're speaking for the Miracles, yes. Correct? Mm-hmm. Well, I think what it was or is even today in listening to the songs, when you hear the Miracles, of course, I'm a miracle, so I'm thinking this way. But I think, fortunately for us, the blend of the 4 voices and the lead singer together, it brought about a perfect harmony. And it wasn't anything that was, made up originally, because we didn't sing together. We only sang together when we really got together as a group for real. Mm. And I think with the girl's voice, and a lot of people didn't know that it was a girl's voice, because in the original first days of show business, they didn't show a picture of who the people were. Sometimes even when you had your first album, you was not a picture of the group on there. It might be an elephant or tiger or
Right.
something else other than, the actual people. So there were times that we actually went out on the road, and on one of those dates, Mr. Robinson, Smokey, was ill. And so he was back in Detroit. And so the rest of us, I took over for the lead parts, the songs that he was singing. And so the people didn't know. They knew that somebody was named Smokey, but they didn't know which one.
Right.
So they were like, sing it, Smokey, sing it, Smokey. And it was me. So, there were a lot of different kinds of things, funny things that happened, along the way for us.
Sure. I wanted to talk about that life on the road because I don't think people can imagine the intensity of trying to start a family and then keep up with this intense schedule to get the publicity and the promotion behind all of the songs you all were doing. Talk to us about that.
Well, when we were deciding on having a family, um, my very first pregnancy ended in a miscarriage after 5.5 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not know how that could be because I was a healthy person. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do anything that I thought would be, negative towards your health. And I was actually really blindsided because I didn't understand. Unfortunately, that was not my first. I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I think the 8th one I had twins. And of course, at that time there was no ultrasound, so they didn't know I was having twins until I had the twins. And when they both expired, I thought something is wrong. I mean, I thought something was wrong all the time, but the doctors kept saying, well, you're still young the next time. And I kept thinking, well, how many next times are there going to be? I've already had all these times.
Right.
And I will tell you, it was devastating in a number of ways because people ask you really, I'm going to say stupid questions like, well, what did you do? What do you mean, what did I do? I was almost 7 months when I had those twins. And they were large enough, we had to have them buried. We did not have a funeral. We chose not to have a funeral. But with that, you had to have, you had to buy the casket and all of that. And it was very, very hard. Very hard. And I didn't know if I should ever be in show business again. I didn't know. I've always called on my faith in God and all. And I was like, well, where are you, God? Because all this keeps happening to me. And as far as I was concerned, I'm a good person.
Right.
And I don't do crazy things. And I'm thinking there are people I see out there, they're doing all these crazy things. And I'm telling you, the devastation of that, of all of them was way beyond my comprehension. Of course, they don't have the facts about health and medicine that they do today.
Mm-hmm.
So in not having that, I didn't know, but actually the doctors eventually said that my problem was an incompetent cervix. So my cervix decided what it wanted to do when it did. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know any of that. And obviously my doctors didn't either at that time. But I do have 2 wonderful adult children today. Yeah. And Berry Robinson and Tamla Claudette Robinson. And Berry has twins, a boy and a girl, who are now 25. And Tamla has a daughter, Lyric, who is 27. Mm-hmm. So I feel extremely blessed that all of that took place, even though I had to go through some really, for me, it was hard. It was really, really hard. It was... if you want to say my heart was breaking, it was broken seemingly so many times over. And as I was thinking about coming here today and it was about medicine and music, I was saying, okay, Claudette, don't cry now. Just take it easy, slow it down, But I tell you, even today, just the thought of it and the feeling and, how sometimes people don't really understand what you yourself go through. It's just not a matter of you lost the baby and that's it. It's all the other things that go with that. And I'm grateful today, grateful to have the two and also the grandchildren who, now they're adults themselves. And I don't know how all that could be. I'm telling you, because as I tell my kids, I'm 21 forever.
Right.
And I have to stay there so that I can still grow more.
Right. The numbers are just digits. Talk to us about that naming, because it's such an amazing type of tribute, and the way that Berry and the whole concept of Tamla must have touched you in naming your children after them.
Well, my son was named Berry after his godfather, Berry Gordy, and William is after his father, William, and William Smokey, or whatever. Berry William Barope. That's three names. Is B-O for Bobby, R-O for Ronnie, and P-E for Pete. And those are our other three miracle members.
Right.
And for Tamla, actually, that was the first label for Motown. It was Tamla, then it was Motown. And so she was Tamla and Claudette after me, and then, of course, the last name. But Mr. Gordy actually kept that name Tamla reserved for Tamla because, he said if Claudette has a girl and she wants to name her Claudette, we're going to reserve that name, because other people would get pregnant and they'd have a little girl and they'd say, I'm going to name her Tamla. And he said, no, you can't. That's reserved for Claudette. So, and my daughter, as she was growing up as a small girl, she's like, why'd you name me after a record company? Why you name me something else? I said, well, when you get older, you'll probably treasure that. Sure. I don't know if she does or doesn't, but it was a great idea. And I'm glad that it happened the way that it did. I'm glad they have the names they have.
Absolutely. He also, Berry, of course, refers to you affectionately as the First Lady of Motown. Talk to us about how much that honors you in retrospect and reciprocation.
Well, how I became the First Lady of Motown is that I was the first female artist signed on to Mr. Gordy first and then on to the company. And there weren't any other females. It was our guys first, because initially, and I know people find this hard to believe, it was just 5 people, by the Miracles. They had been the Matadors prior to, and we changed the name because Mr. Gordy said, Matadors does not quite suit a group that has a girl in it. So how it came about for the Miracles is I pulled the name out of a hat. Everybody put names in a hat. And so as I was pulling out, it said Miracles. And they all thought that was a great name. However, Mr. Robinson said that he wrote the name. I don't know if he did or didn't. All I know is I pulled the name out.
Right. You were at a party or something like that.
That's right.
Yeah. No, it's pretty amazing and pretty incredible type of time. Talk to us about sort of that decision to have to make a transition given some of these health issues and things of that nature.
Well, I will tell you, having to come off the road was devastating for me because I didn't know, if I come off the road after I've been on the road for so many years, what am I going to do? I'm going to be home because I'm not going to be able to go out on the road with them every time. And I think I had been on the road about 9 years at that point. And I'm thinking, what do I do? How am I going to fulfill my life? Or what happens after this? The thing is, I personally did not want to come off the road, even though in my reality, I felt like it probably would be better for my health, but I wasn't the one who made the decision. The decision actually was made by Mr. Robinson and Mr. Gordy. They thought that my health was suffering as a result of being on the road and that I should come off the road. Well, our group had always been a group that actually voted on everything. Anything, any ideas, anything that we did, we voted on it together. This is one time they would not vote on it. They said, that's a family thing. I said, this is a group thing. This is a career decision.
Right.
They would not vote. So I was left to the two people that made the decision for me, and it was hard. I can tell you one of the hardest decisions that I've had to make, because it wasn't my decision. It was a decision made for me. And I guess overall, thinking back, it was probably one that was really best. But at the time, I could not see that. I had made all these friends on the road and, traveling all over the world. And I was like, I don't know if just sitting at home is going to be fun.
Sure. Right.
So as a result of that, I finally adjusted to it. It was hard adjusting. The adjustment initially was really hard. It wasn't just a little hard. It was very hard because, all the friends you had back home over all those years, they're doing different things now.
Right.
And it's like, where do you fit in? What are you going to do? How do you, what do they do for their free time? And, some had jobs, some didn't, some, were shoppers or whatever. And it's like, okay, what do I do? And, but I finally found my place, and I'm happy for all of that today.
Sure. Do you sense that some of that experience also helped you really sort of define who you were, and to really sort of find yourself in a new identity?
Well, I'm going to say I think I've always known my identity pretty much, because I had two strong women in my life, and it was my grandmother and my mom. And those people, I can tell you, were absolutely, everybody should have had a grandmother and a mother like mine. Because if you did, I think your confidence in life and everything else would just greatly improve. Because my grandmother probably thought I was just the whole entire world, an angel, and everything. My grandmother was the one who actually took me to the National Baptist Convention when I was 4 years old and stood me up on a box so that I could sing. And of course, she said that I sang like an angel.
Right.
So if you're 4 years old, you're like, yes, I am. But it was... they were both such phenomenal women, and you've got to think this is a long time ago. Unfortunately, my grandmother passed away when I was 8 years old, because my first 8 years basically were with my grandmother, and we were in Louisiana, and it was, a lot of racial prejudice, a number of things that happened during that time. And I've always wondered, with her dying so early in life, because she was 40 when she passed away, she had a cerebral hemorrhage. And when that happened, it was adjustment had to be made, because then I was moving to Michigan to be with my mom and my brother and my stepdad. And your whole life changes. You're in a different state. It's almost like a different country, actually, because each day, at that time, we were called people. Like on my birth certificate, what it says is colored. It doesn't, because we were classified as colored, because when I saw the first water fountains, one would say white and the other would say colored. And as a little girl, I thought blue and red and,
Sure.
all these colors were going to come out. And when I saw it was just regular old water, I was like, forget about it. But my grandmother made things so simple for me and exciting and fun. When we had to get on the bus and we went to the back, I thought we were privileged, because, if you're a little kid, the best seat is in the back. You're rolling around and just having a great time. And when you go to the movie theater and we have to sit in the balcony, I thought again, we were privileged. Because, you can see everything. You're on top and you're looking at the movie and, but it was like she never made things appear like it was going to be hard and damaging. And instead of going to the colored school, and I can't tell you why, my grandmother sent me to Catholic school, even though she was the secretary of her brother's church, which was a Baptist church. So I kind of like was integrated with both Baptist and Catholic, during my early years. And, but we always were a family of faith. We always believed in God. And I think they gave me that beginning. And from that time to as we speak today, I can tell you that that is my hope, my belief, my faith. And without that, I probably wouldn't have survived the many crises that have happened over the years.
Sure. Speaking about some of those types of crises, do you sense that life on the road for those that don't have a foundation is tremendously challenging because of all of the temptations that are out there, alcohol, things of that nature?
Well, it possibly that can be a factor of if they have no guidance or no one to really either believe in, listen to, or whatever, it's possible that that could be a great factor, because if you don't know what you should be doing, then it's possible that many things could happen to you. I just always have to say each and every day, I was so blessed growing up, being a part of what people always say the 60s, and the 60s were so horrible. I didn't find that horrible. Uh, no one tried to attract me to try to do drugs. I mean, no one, like if people had any wild parties or something, I wasn't invited because I was like green in the box, as they said, and I was like, at first I thought that was like, it's kind of demeaning, you know. But then over the years, I'm very happy that they didn't try to attract me to do any of the things that many other people got into and probably later wish they hadn't. And it's not like I'm saying I'm a perfect person. I never did one wrong thing or something like that. But my mother would say, no, she has not done anything wrong. My mother would say she's perfect, which I know that I'm not perfect. But I was so happy, as I told you before, to have two strong women in my life that had such great high hopes and aspirations for me always, and I know the one thing is that they truly loved me. I was telling someone just the other day, I said, I don't know of anyone who has actually received an award from their mom. My mother, as I was starting out in show business, she gave me a plaque of for Claudette, not the group, for me. And I know sometimes that may sound a little strange, but it's just how she was. She really believed that I could do anything that I wanted to or needed to or something. She wasn't so sure about show business originally, because she thought that might be a little, rough or dangerous or whatever. But I think as I got in it, she found out that I wasn't going to like just transform and all of a sudden be this person that she didn't know any longer. And, I just have to say thank you, Mom, and thank you, Granny, for just being such an inspiration to me in my life, not only then as a small child, but today as a kind of mature woman, if you will.
We've seen so many artists have a meteoric and incredible rises, but also falls, and that existed yesterday as today. Is there some advice that you have for some people who are coming up in the business where, again, they're on that meteoric trend? You can see, wow, they're getting this hit and then that opportunity and this amazing opportunity, that you might give some, we'll just say, young woman coming up in the business?
Well, I'll tell you my advice that I give to most young women that I've met or still today. I try to tell them that you are enough just as you are. You don't need to have these other outside factors to make you into who you want to be. And you can make decisions on your own as to what you'd like to become and what you'd like to be. And the other factor is learn to love yourself first. And I shouldn't say first, God first, then yourself, and then others that follow behind that. Because, if you can love yourself, you'd be surprised how many others can love you after that. Because they can see that there's something they don't have to just always pamper you and all of that, because you're taking care of yourself as much as you can, because it's stages as you go along. But I think if we, and I'm saying we as young women, can just get to that point where we actually love ourselves, many, many great things happen for you. Because some people say, well, I'm shy, I'm this, I'm that. I felt like as a young girl, I was very shy, but I think what it was, my mother said, you're not shy, you're reserved. She said, you listen to what people say, and then you're trying to get that information. And by you not talking, sometimes they don't know that it's not your shyness. You're trying to trying to find out more information and learn from what it is that they're saying. And she told me that when I was really very young. I don't even know if I was 7 yet, And, of course, I think when you have a mom and a grand, like I did, it's like it encourages you to want to be able to do more. And when you don't have that, I'm going to say it's not your fault that happened, because I don't know how we get parents. They say sometimes we choose them, but however it comes about, if you don't have that, hopefully there'll be someone in your life that will be able to help you to get to a better place in your life. Because unfortunately, everybody doesn't have the same factors. They don't have the same families and many things that are negative. So I'm not saying that just life is so wonderful every single moment and all. And people do have to go through trials and tribulations at all times. It's even if you have what you consider a wonderful life, you still go through things. Nothing is ever perfect, but we're always trying to lead and guide and keep going until you get to that perfection of where what you're reaching for.
Sure. And then parallel for some of the guys, do you sense that maybe whether it's internal demons or temptations, that really sort of not having that foundation? We saw these types of things with Michael and other artists today who are in the news. What do you sense would be that advice for that young man that may be committed to this not only meteoric rise, but life on the road, which comes with many temptations?
Well, the road and the music industry has changed drastically. There have been people who've asked me, can you or will you, talk to this artist or something, especially females. They're often asking me, can you tell them how to dress? And I said, no, I cannot. They're not going to listen to me. I said, what we did in our day is totally different from what people are doing today. And I would say, try to keep yourself a little covered if you can. And, you can. And continue trying to what we would classify being a lady, because that's important, even if they don't think it's important. And I grew up with guys. I feel like I grew up with guys, so I learned quite a bit from what men were thinking. Because when my experience with my guys is that I became like their mother hen. I was looking out for them. I was listening and, trying to learn from what they were talking about. But I also learned as women came into the dressing rooms and we're talking to them and the things they talked about. Some of the things were not great. And sometimes I would have to say to some of the young women, kind of keep the legs a little closed, so that and I know people are like, girl, did you say that to them? And I said, yes, I did. Because in the beginning, there was only one dressing room. They didn't have a separate dressing room for me, but I never dressed with the guys. I'd let them dress and then I would wait till they were finished and then I would go and dress, unless there were other female artists on the show. And sometimes, they would say, well, is it okay if Claudette dresses with you or something? And some would say yes, and then some would say no. But the business is show business is a great business, but it's what it is. It's a business about show. And so if you want to survive in the business, you don't have to give in to all the negative aspects of things that happen. You can very much become still the person that you are. You can maintain your values and what you believe and what you think. You don't have to cater to what other people think about you, because you've got to keep what do you think of yourself? Do you love yourself? Are you happy with what you see when you see yourself walking through every day? Is that something you'd like to change? And if it's something you'd like to change, you can, because it's all left up to you.
Sure. We've got to touch on the music before we go. When you maybe either first heard the lyrics or the song, and I know you all didn't do My Girl, but it just sweeps one away. What were your thoughts about it? What do you think about it today?
Well, the song My Girl is such, oh gosh, it's such a phenomena for, so happy for the Temptations. I was honored to be able to be a part of their 60th anniversary in Detroit a week ago. And what they did is that there's now a vinyl of My Girl. And it's also a story behind that. And in the story, it's telling, because that song was written by Ronnie White of the Miracles and Smokey Robinson of the Miracles. And what happened at that time is each one of them wrote what they were feeling for their wives at that time. And to think of 60 years later that they're still able to play that song and how much people love and care about it, I am glad or happy and excited all at the same time that I was able to be an inspiration for some of those lyrics.
Sure. The show is called Music and Medicine, and when you hear those words, how do you hear them in your heart?
Now, that's something maybe a little difficult to answer for you, but I think I've gotten so engrossed in what others are feeling and thinking about the song, because I always thought it was a great song from the beginning, but it's much more than that today. And the song and the feeling behind it for the lyrics, and even if it had not been written by those two people, it would still be a great song, because I think a lot was put into that. And you got to think that was 60 years ago, not 5 years ago.
Right.
And for them to be celebrating that today, it's, first of all, quite an honor and something very phenomenal for the two that did write that. Of course, Ronnie White, unfortunately, is deceased. He passed away in 95 from leukemia. And, always missed greatly. And his daughter is my goddaughter. And his first daughter actually passed away from leukemia. And so, medicine and all the things and many of the diseases and all that have happened, it's like close to your heart. My brother, that was the one that I sort of replaced in the group, he passed away many years ago. And, it's like all these, I think I'm saying great people because they were great people in my life. And I just, I feel fortunate that I today am still here to be able to tell the story, because no one can tell your story better than you. People think they can,
Right.
but they didn't live it. They don't know it. And you cannot have the story. It's never correct unless the person tells it themselves. And I'm glad that Motown Museum today, they're really getting as many artists as they can to tell their story. And so with the museum today, you'll be able to go to the museum, push a button, and for that featured artist, and you'll hear their story.
I love it. Well, we certainly love you living in your truth and continuing to be such a strong woman of faith, as well as a mirror to a miracle itself, which is having a wonderful family and then grandchildren on top of all of these things that you've accomplished. It certainly is a full circle and blessing. So thanks so much for coming into our lives and being a soundtrack for it.
Well, I thank you greatly for having me, because it is a great honor to be able, and I feel truly blessed each and every day that I'm able to tell the story or be a guiding light to someone if that's possible, or anything that I can tell them, even about my own life and the things that I've gone through and the things that I, aspire to today. Because I haven't given up on my dream of dreaming more.
Sure.
And I thank you. Thank all of you for having me today.
Look, wonderful. You have such a great spirit. We appreciate the positivity. Thanks.
And God bless you.
Sure. Likewise. Thanks.